Writing and publishing a manuscript, from data to publication. In this episode, we move from completed experiments and analyzed data to the most critical step, publishing your work. Research only becomes part of scientific knowledge when it is communicated clearly and effectively. Publishing is not just a requirement for career advancement, it is how your ideas reach the scientific community, influence your field, and contribute to future discoveries. Different types of manuscripts require different approaches, and the way you structure your paper plays a major role in how your work is understood, evaluated, and cited. It is also important to remember that every journal has its own specific requirements, and aligning your manuscript with those expectations is key to successful publication. Whether you are working in biomedical sciences, engineering, public health, social sciences, AI, or economics, the core principle remains the same: clarity and structure determine impact. In today's session, we will walk step by step through the complete roadmap of manuscript writing and publishing, from organizing your data to preparing a paper that is ready for submission. Types of manuscripts. Before writing, you must decide what type of manuscript you are preparing. A brief communication is used for rapid, focused findings. A full research article presents comprehensive data and detailed methodology. A meta-analysis statistically synthesizes multiple published studies. A review article integrates and critiques existing literature without new experiments. Perspectives offer expert insight. Technical reports focus on methodology. Choosing the wrong format can weaken your submission, so align manuscript type with your objective and dataset depth. Every journal has strict formatting rules. Short communications are concise and limited. Research articles allow more depth. Reviews are typically longer. Some journals restrict figure numbers or references. Engineering journals may emphasize technical appendices. Social science journals may allow longer theory sections. Never start writing without reading the journal's author guidelines carefully. Most manuscripts share common structural components. However, the depth and emphasis of each section vary depending on manuscript type. Research articles emphasize methods and results. Review articles emphasize literature synthesis. Meta-analyses emphasize methodology transparency. Understanding this structure is essential before drafting. Your title is the first impression of your research, and often the deciding factor in whether someone reads your paper. It should be a single, concise sentence that clearly reflects your main finding, not just the general topic. Avoid vague phrases like studies on or investigation of, as they do not communicate value. Also, minimize unnecessary jargon. Your title should be clear, accessible, and easy to understand across disciplines. A strong title is both informative and searchable, which directly impacts visibility and citation. Especially in interdisciplinary research, clarity matters far more than complexity. Authorship represents both credit and responsibility. Only individuals who made meaningful intellectual contributions should be listed as authors. In most scientific fields, the order reflects contribution. The first author usually conducted the majority of experiments and drafted the manuscript. Middle authors contributed specific expertise, analyses, or experiments. The last author is typically the senior investigator who conceptualized and supervised the project. The corresponding author handles manuscript submission and communication with the journal. Sometimes two authors may be listed as equal contributors, or two senior investigators may serve as co-corresponding authors. Clear discussion of authorship roles early in the project prevents confusion later and reflects professional scientific conduct. Author affiliations represent the institutional homes connected to the research. In most cases, affiliations reflect where the work was conducted and where the author was employed at the time of the study. Some researchers hold joint appointments or collaborate across institutions. In such cases, multiple affiliations can be listed appropriately. Sometimes an author completes the research at one institution but moves to another before publication. In that situation, the original institution is typically listed as the primary affiliation, and the new institution can be indicated as the current address. Affiliations are not just administrative details. They provide institutional transparency, ensure proper recognition, and reflect the collaborative nature of modern research. The abstract is a condensed version of your entire manuscript. It usually ranges from 200 to 500 words, depending on the journal's requirements. A well-written abstract briefly explains why the study was conducted, how it was carried out, what was found, and what the findings mean. It should clearly present the background or rationale, summarize the key methods used, report the main results, and conclude with the primary takeaway message. Some journals require a structured abstract with separate headings such as background, methods, results, and conclusion. Others prefer a single flowing paragraph. Importantly, the abstract must accurately represent the data. It should not exaggerate findings or introduce conclusions not supported by results. For many readers, the abstract may be the only section they read, so clarity and precision are essential. Keywords play a crucial role in how your manuscript is discovered. Most journals require you to provide between 5 and 10 keywords that accurately represent the main topics of your study. These keywords should reflect the central concepts, methodology, population, or model used in your research. For example, if your study involves diabetes, vitamin D supplementation, and randomized controlled trials, those terms may serve as strong keywords. Avoid simply repeating the exact words from your title. Instead, include complementary terms that enhance discoverability. Since most journals are web-based and indexed in major databases, keywords improve search engine optimization and ensure your manuscript reaches the right audience. Choosing them thoughtfully increases visibility and citation potential. The introduction sets the context for your study and explains why the research matters. It should begin by describing the broader problem and its significance, helping the reader understand the magnitude of the issue. From there, it narrows down to identify the specific knowledge gap your study aims to address. A clear hypothesis or research question should then be stated to guide the rest of the manuscript. Typically, the introduction is structured in 3 to 5 paragraphs, moving logically from general background to specific focus. Overall, the introduction should transition smoothly from a broad problem to a precise hypothesis. The introduction or background section establishes why your study matters. Its length depends on the type of manuscript. A brief communication may require only a short paragraph, while a full research article, meta-analysis, or review typically includes 3 to 5 well-developed paragraphs. The first paragraph should clearly define the magnitude of the problem. You should provide numbers, global prevalence, national statistics, economic burden, healthcare costs, and societal impact. This builds urgency and justifies why the research question is important. For example, diabetes is a major global health challenge affecting more than 1 billion individuals worldwide and imposing a substantial economic and healthcare burden across both developed and developing nations. In many countries, the prevalence of diabetes continues to rise, contributing to increased morbidity, mortality, and long-term healthcare costs. Despite advances in clinical management, preventive strategies remain limited, and the underlying mechanisms contributing to disease onset and progression are not fully understood. Therefore, there is a critical need to develop effective, practical, and implementable strategies to prevent, delay, or mitigate this disease. Diet and lifestyle factors represent modifiable contributors and may serve as key intervention targets. Notice how this paragraph moves from scale right pointing arrow problem right pointing arrow gap right pointing arrow need for action. After establishing the broad problem, the second paragraph narrows the focus to a specific thematic area, in this example, nutrition. Here you summarize current understanding while identifying limitations. For example, emerging evidence suggests that dietary patterns and nutritional status play a significant role in the development and progression of type 2 diabetes. Diet influences glucose metabolism, insulin sensitivity, systemic inflammation, and body composition. Several observational and interventional studies have demonstrated associations between dietary quality and reduced diabetes risk. However, findings across studies remain inconsistent, and the specific nutritional components that exert the most significant protective or therapeutic effects are not fully established. Moreover, mechanistic pathways linking nutritional status to metabolic regulation require further clarification. This paragraph transitions from broad public health concern to a focused research theme. Now we move deeper into specificity. The third paragraph should focus on particular nutritional components, reviewing literature critically. For example, among individual nutritional factors, vitamin D, iron status, amino acid balance, and selected dietary supplements have attracted increasing scientific interest. Vitamin D deficiency has been associated with impaired insulin sensitivity in several observational studies, although randomized controlled trials have produced mixed results. Iron overload has been linked to altered glucose metabolism, yet its causal role remains debated. Similarly, certain amino acids and micronutrients have demonstrated potential metabolic benefits, but the magnitude and consistency of their effects remain uncertain. These inconsistencies highlight a significant gap in understanding the precise role of targeted nutritional interventions in diabetes prevention and management. This final paragraph is the bridge into the results section. Finally, the introduction should end with a clear hypothesis and study objective. In the present study, we tested the hypothesis that targeted nutritional supplementation improves metabolic markers associated with insulin resistance. Using a controlled study design, we evaluated specific population, model, measured primary outcomes, and assessed secondary outcomes. Our findings provide new insights into the mechanistic and clinical relevance of targeted nutritional interventions in metabolic regulation. This final paragraph is the bridge into the results section. The results section is the heart of your manuscript. This is where you present what you discovered, clearly, objectively, and logically. Most research articles include 3 to 6 subsections in the results. Each subsection typically corresponds to one major finding or experimental objective. These subsections often appear as subheadings and should follow a logical progression. For example, baseline characteristics first, then primary outcomes, followed by secondary outcomes, and finally mechanistic or exploratory analyses. Each subsection is usually supported by 1 or 2 figures or tables. In some cases, a combination of both may be used to present complementary data. It is critical that the results section remains objective. You are reporting observations, not interpreting them. Interpretation belongs in the discussion section. Use clear statements such as, participants receiving intervention demonstrated significantly improved insulin sensitivity compared to the control group, p less than 0.05. Avoid statements like, this proves the intervention is highly effective. Keep it factual. Let the data speak. The organization of the results section may vary depending on the journal, so always review formatting instructions carefully. Most manuscripts structure results into clearly labeled subsections, each aligned with a specific experimental aim or question. These sections should flow progressively. For example, 1. Baseline characteristics. 2. Primary outcome analysis. 3. Secondary outcomes. 4. Mechanistic or subgroup analysis. Each subsection should directly reference its corresponding figure or table. Do not include a figure without discussing it in the text. For example, as shown in Figure 2, fasting glucose levels were significantly reduced in the treatment group compared to placebo. Statistical details must be included: sample size, n, statistical test used, and p-values. If additional analyses are extensive, they may be placed in supplementary figures or supplementary tables. Remember, a well-structured results section makes it easy for readers and reviewers to follow your scientific logic without confusion. Discussion reconnects your findings to the broader context introduced earlier. Start by summarizing key findings briefly. Then interpret. How do these findings compare with previous studies? Are they consistent? Do they challenge existing theory? Discuss strengths, sample size, experimental design, statistical rigor. Discuss limitations honestly. Small sample size, limited generalizability, potential confounding. End with implications and future directions. Strong discussions are balanced, not promotional. Some journals require a separate conclusion section, while others integrate it within the discussion. When included, the conclusion should be concise and focused. This section summarizes the major findings of the study and clearly states the primary takeaway message. It should emphasize what the study adds to the field, whether that is clinical relevance, policy implications, engineering applications, or theoretical advancement. A strong conclusion also briefly highlights future research directions. For example, it may suggest the need for larger trials, mechanistic validation, or broader population studies. Importantly, the conclusion should not introduce new data, make exaggerated claims, or repeat the entire discussion. It should leave the reader with a clear understanding of the study's significance and next steps. The references or bibliography section lists all previously published work cited in your manuscript. A short communication may include only a few references, while a review article or meta-analysis may contain over 100. It is essential to carefully follow the journal's citation format. Different journals use different styles, such as Vancouver, APA, or Harvard. Even small formatting errors can delay publication during revision. Accuracy is critical. Ensure that author names, article titles, journal names, volume numbers, page numbers, and publication years are correct. Using reference management software such as EndNote, Zotero, or Mendeley can greatly simplify citation formatting and prevent errors. Finally, cite thoughtfully. Include relevant and up-to-date literature, but avoid unnecessary or excessive references. Quality matters more than quantity. Figures are the visual core of your manuscript. They communicate your findings more powerfully than text alone. Most journals allow between 4 and 7 main figures, depending on formatting rules. Additional supporting analyses are typically included as supplementary figures. Figures may be single-panel, presenting one dataset, or multi-panel, combining related experiments into one composite figure. Multi-panel figures are usually labeled alphabetically, such as A, B, C, or numerically in some formats. Figures can include bar graphs, line graphs, scatter plots, heat maps, microscopy images, schematics, or engineering diagrams, depending on the discipline. Whenever presenting group comparisons, include measures of central tendency such as mean values along with clearly defined error bars, either standard deviation, SD, or standard error of the mean, SEM. Statistical significance is typically indicated using symbols such as asterisk, or p-values, and must be explained in the legend. Each figure must include a detailed legend describing what is shown, sample size, statistical test used, and any abbreviations. Well-designed figures improve clarity, strengthen credibility, and significantly influence reviewer perception. Tables provide a structured and precise way to present numerical data. Like figures, the number of tables allowed depends on journal guidelines, but most manuscripts include between 3 and 7. Tables are especially useful for presenting baseline characteristics, detailed numerical comparisons, regression results, or multivariable analyses. Values are commonly reported as mean plus or minus standard deviation, SD, or mean plus or minus standard error of the mean, SEM, depending on context. Statistical comparisons, including p-values or confidence intervals, should be clearly included. Footnotes are often used to describe the statistical tests applied, define abbreviations, or clarify special conditions. Each table must have a clear and descriptive heading that explains what data are presented. Tables are labeled sequentially as Table 1, Table 2, and so on, while additional data may be placed in supplementary tables. Importantly, tables should complement your figures rather than duplicate them. Use tables when detailed numerical precision is needed, and use figures when visual comparison improves understanding. Well-designed tables enhance clarity and strengthen the overall presentation of your manuscript. In research articles, the materials and methods section is one of the most important components. Its purpose is replication. Another researcher should be able to repeat your study based solely on this description. You must clearly describe your study design, whether it is a randomized controlled trial, observational study, laboratory experiment, engineering validation study, or computational model. List materials and reagents with sufficient detail. In biomedical sciences, include manufacturer names and catalog numbers. In engineering, describe device specifications and calibration procedures. In AI, specify software versions, datasets, and model architecture details. Controls must be clearly defined. Experimental conditions, such as dose, duration, temperature, inclusion criteria, or hardware specifications, should be precise. Finally, describe statistical analyses clearly. Different journals require different levels of detail, so always follow author instructions carefully and adjust based on space limitations. Review articles are structured differently from research articles. They do not describe new experiments. Instead, they synthesize and analyze existing literature. However, a strong review should still describe how the literature was selected. Indicate which databases were searched and what keywords were used. Explain inclusion and exclusion criteria when applicable. In narrative reviews, this section may be brief. In systematic reviews, the search methodology should be transparent and reproducible. Review articles should be compiled strategically. organized by themes, mechanisms, historical progression, or controversies. Unlike research articles, the emphasis is on interpretation and synthesis rather than experimentation. Meta-analysis requires highly structured methodology. Unlike a narrative review, it involves quantitative synthesis of published data. You must clearly define your research question and inclusion criteria. Specify databases searched, time period covered, and search strategy. PRISMA guidelines are typically required, including a flow diagram that shows how studies were screened and selected. Explain how effect sizes were calculated and whether fixed effect or random effects models were used. Assess heterogeneity using measures such as I-squared. Evaluate publication bias using funnel plots when appropriate. Meta-analysis methods must be transparent, reproducible, and statistically rigorous. The materials and methods section differs significantly depending on manuscript type. Research articles require detailed procedural description to allow replication. Review articles focus on literature selection and synthesis rather than experimental design. Meta-analyses require systematic search strategies and statistical pooling methodology. Because each manuscript type has different expectations, you must structure this section accordingly. Always consult journal guidelines before submission. Regardless of type, transparency and clarity are essential. A strong methods section strengthens credibility and significantly influences reviewer confidence. In addition to the core manuscript sections, many journals require additional transparency statements. These sections are essential and should not be overlooked. The acknowledgements section recognizes individuals who contributed to the project but did not meet authorship criteria, such as technical support, editing assistance, or administrative coordination. The funding statement discloses financial support, including grant numbers and sponsoring organizations. Transparency in funding strengthens trust. The conflict of interest section requires authors to declare any financial, professional, or personal relationships that could influence interpretation of the findings. Many journals also require a data availability statement explaining whether and where the dataset can be accessed, particularly in clinical research, public health, and computational studies. Supplementary materials may include additional figures, extended datasets, detailed methods, or supporting analyses that exceed the main manuscript limits. Because requirements vary by journal, always review the author guidelines carefully. These sections promote transparency, reproducibility, and ethical compliance in modern scientific publishing. Choosing the right journal is a strategic decision that significantly influences your acceptance rate. First, match the journal's scope to your manuscript. Even strong papers are rejected if they fall outside a journal's thematic focus. Always read the journal's aims and scope carefully. Second, consider whether to prioritize impact factor or specialization. High-impact journals offer broader visibility but have lower acceptance rates. Specialized journals may provide a more targeted and receptive audience. Third, think about your intended readership. Are you writing for clinicians, engineers, policymakers, public health researchers, or computational scientists? Your audience should align with the journal's community. Consult mentors or senior colleagues who understand the publishing landscape in your discipline. Their experience can save time and prevent misdirected submissions. Examine where similar studies have been published. If research comparable to yours appears regularly in a particular journal, that journal may be an appropriate fit. Also consider practical factors such as review timeline, open access policies, and publication fees. Strategic journal selection does not guarantee acceptance, but it significantly increases your probability of success. After submission, your manuscript typically undergoes an initial editorial screening. At this stage, the editor evaluates whether the paper fits the journal's scope and meets basic quality standards. Many papers are rejected at this stage, often due to scope mismatch or formatting issues. If the manuscript passes initial screening, it is sent to external peer reviewers. Reviewers evaluate novelty, methodology, clarity, statistical rigor, and relevance. The decision may be acceptance, minor revision, major revision, or rejection. Most manuscripts receive revision requests. This is normal and expected. When responding to reviewers, read every comment carefully. Prepare a structured, point-by-point response document. Address each comment clearly and indicate exactly where changes were made in the manuscript. Always maintain a polite and professional tone, even if you disagree. Support your responses with data, references, or clear reasoning. Peer review is not an obstacle. It is a collaborative process aimed at strengthening your manuscript. Respond respectfully, revise thoughtfully, and view feedback as an opportunity to improve your work. Rejection is a normal and unavoidable part of scientific publishing. Even well-designed, high-quality studies are frequently rejected, sometimes due to journal scope, priority decisions, or reviewer perspectives. It is important not to interpret rejection as failure. Instead, treat it as feedback. Carefully read the editor's decision letter and reviewer comments. Identify constructive criticisms and areas for improvement. Revise your manuscript thoughtfully. Strengthen weak sections, clarify methods, refine figures, or improve interpretation where needed. Sometimes rejection simply means the journal was not the right fit. In that case, select a more appropriate journal whose scope aligns better with your work. Successful researchers are not those who never experience rejection, they are those who persist. Publication is often a process of refinement and resubmission. Rejection is part of the journey. Persistence builds scientific resilience. Every discipline has its own writing style, expectations, and publication standards. Grant writing is very different from manuscript writing. Clinical trial reporting differs from engineering validation papers. Social science publications emphasize theoretical framing, while industry white papers focus on translation and application. If you would like a focused episode tailored to your discipline, whether that is NIH grant writing, clinical trial manuscripts, AI publications, engineering journals, social science writing, or industry research reports, let us know. Tell us your field and the specific topic you want covered next. We will build a detailed, practical episode designed specifically for your needs. Your feedback shapes this series. If you enjoyed this video, found the topic helpful, or believe this content could be useful to others, please take a moment to like, share, and leave a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you for watching.